Let's turn our attention to the Middle East now. During a phone call with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Biden stressed the urgent need to reach a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. The White House said they also discussed U.S. efforts to support Israel's defense against what it called all threats from Iran and proxy terrorist groups, including Hamas. Let's speak to my colleague, Said Shahata from BBC Arabic, who's in Cairo. Said, we were led to believe last week after the talks due to a close in Qatar that they were due to start in Cairo where you are. What's happened?
No news about any resumption of the talks because some of the Hamas members of the political bureau of Hamas said that they are not willing for any new negotiations because they sent the reply to the proposal announced by Mr. Biden is the American president on 2nd of July. So they don't accept any conditions, more demands from the Israeli Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. So there is, from Hamas side, they are not willing to any new negotiations, any new conditions. In addition to that, within the Israeli negotiation team, there is reports about disagreement between Mr. Netanyahu from one side and some members of the negotiation team. Regarding some of these members want the deal to be done as the American wants. But Mr. Netanyahu seems to put more conditions which are not accepted even by Egypt or Hamas. So now it's like a deadlock, and no one knows will the negotiation will be restarted again in Egypt or not.
How is this affecting the apparent optimism that some were expressing last week?
Yeah, the optimism came from the American, but like from Hamas side and Israeli side, there was no optimism because Hamas, like members of the political bureau, several of them said like Mr. Netanyahu with more obstacles. The hostages family put pressure on Mr. Netanyahu to reach a deal. But there is some sticking points between the two sides, especially after what's called the bridging proposal by the United States announced by Mr. Blinken, the American foreign minister, which was not revealed publicly. But there is some disagreement, especially the talks about the presence of Israeli forces along the Philadelphia corridor or the Salah al-Jin corridor and the Nizrim crossing, which separates between the north and central and south of Gaza. So, and within the plan of which accepted by Hamas and announced by Mr. Biden, there is 3 stages of this plan, and there is disagreement about the names of the prisoners released and the numbers and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. Because Mr. Netanyahu repeatedly said there is a red line about fighting Hamas until he demolished Hamas, and there is no signs he demolished Hamas yet, after almost 11 months of the war since 7th of October. So there is some sticking point, especially the presence of the Israeli on the Philadelphia corridor, which is not accepted by Egypt or Hamas, because Hamas said they need the people evacuated or forced to leave their houses in the north to go back. But the Israeli put conditions that should be monitored because you don't want to allow any militant, according to the Israeli and Mr. Netanyahu, to go to the north without being monitored and screened. So there is many sticking points. Disagreements, so the optimism came from the American side, but from the concerned side, the Israeli and the Palestinian, there is no optimism.
Sayed, for the moment, thank you very much. Said Shahata from BBC Arabic speaking to us from Cairo. In Israel, a funeral ceremony is being held for one of the hostages whose bodies were recovered from Gaza earlier this week. 8-year-old Yoram Metzger was kidnapped from his home in Kibbutz near Ozilon with his wife Tamar, who was released from Hamas captivity after 53 days. The Israeli military retrieved the bodies of 6 hostages from the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, as negotiations continue to bring back more than 100 people still being held captive in Gaza.